Everybody gets their inspiration from different places. Frank and I are about to talk about where we get ours. This started with an argument as I told him that I like to listen to hip hop if I need to really get something creative done, to which he argued that was a terrible choice and that country is the only thing you should listen to in the office. So in this episode, we do battle. We are going to pick our 5 favorite hip hop and country songs and talk about why we find inspiration in those. For all of our loyal subscribers, thank you so much for sticking with us and helping us grow this little podcast. If you haven't given us a review on Apple Podcasts, boy, we'd appreciate it. And if you're new, hit that subscribe button and turn on your notifications. Come along and ride with us. Frankie!
Ian, look at you wearing your hip hop sweater.
Oh, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. This is a special episode. I cannot wait.
I just wish I was a little tighter in the cage. I'd be doing this one shirtless.
Oh, shirtless, just straight redneck style. So this podcast was recommended by no one, and it's the podcast that you didn't know you needed, but by the end you'll listen to it 2 and 3 and 4 times because it's special. So we are battling today, Frank, me versus you. We are taking turns going through our favorite songs in 2 genres that are incredibly important to both of us. So this kind of originated in that I was telling Frank I needed to get pumped up and there was something I needed to get done. I said, I'm going to turn on some hip hop and get myself pumped up to get going. He was like, when I get pumped up, I always listen to country. And it started a little bit of an argument between the two of us of what was better to juice you up and find inspiration in business, country or hip hop.
So for me, like if I need to work and concentrate, I can't get into hip hop. I can't do it. Like I love all these songs, but I work out the most of them. But like for me, country is, so this is where this emanated. I grew up in South Florida and I mostly grew up with hip hop. I grew up with the stuff my parents listened to, which is kind of like oldies. And I listened to classic rock. That's what what did you guys listen to working out in high school, Ian?
Rock and roll 100% when I worked out. That was AC/DC, Metallica. That's what you blared.
And we would do like Led Zeppelin. We would do a lot of classic rock too. So I hated country music. Like I absolutely hated it. And I went to college, and I've gone through this before. I was on the 2 + 2 = 5 plan when I went to the University of Florida. So my last 18 months in school, I was in the building construction major, and all the guys there, they had boats. They were all from the country, and we all started listening. I listened to country with them. I hated it for a while, but like by the last 6 to 12 months in college, I'm starting to come around to this. It was like George Strait and stuff like that. And then I found myself listening to it when I was doing things like packing or unpacking or working. And, that's how it kind of became for me, my go-to.
So I grew up on the mean streets of Trenton, Michigan. That's where most of the hard people that you'll ever meet in your life grew up. And it's 30 minutes south of Detroit. So, in the 80s, 90s, we had B96 and WJLB 97.9, lots of good hip hop stations. My first cassette tape ever was Run DMC, Raising Hell. My second was Beastie Boys, License to Ill, I'm Bad, LL Cool J. Probably my first 30 tapes were rap. I don't think I had a rock tape until I had like 30 rap tapes. And so that's what I listened to growing up. That's what I got excited about. That's what I got pumped up about. And I probably didn't get into country until really you got me into it. And really, now I listen to a lot of country, I think, and largely because they swear a lot less. So I think I got into country 10 years ago when IJ was born because I can play country in the car and he's not going to repeat it and get me in trouble when he goes to school. But for me, when I need to get jazzed, when I need to find inspiration, when I'm trying to get excited to write an article or make a video, or even just to get excited to go make a sale, to get on the phone with a customer if I have to close a deal, it is 100% for me always hip hop. That's where my inspiration comes from.
So let's do it, man. So this is how we're going to do this. It's going to be a battle. We're going to go back and forth. 5, 5, 4, 4. We're going to do 5 songs each. We're going to go. You go first.
I feel like this is unfair a little bit that I have the hip hop genre, though. I feel like most listeners right now already know who's going to win this battle because I think I just have the better genre in general. I think you picked kind of a softer genre. It's like saying classical, to get excited. I don't know, like hip hop is all about the struggle. It's all about coming from the streets and making something yourself. The stories are better. The country's sad. It's about losing your girlfriend and your mom died and your guns, and it's about drinking beer and your dog. Like I don't even know how you're going to put enough material together to. I mean, I feel like my first song is going to beat all 5 of yours.
Let's go, Mr. Overconfident.
All right, well, so my first song, and we're going to go from 5 to 1. My first song that I chose is by LL Cool J, the LL standing for Ladies Love Cool J.
Or Laser Lips, depending on what you read.
I'm Bad. And I chose I'm Bad for so many reasons. One of my absolute favorite songs to listen to. But one thing I love about hip hop, the genre in general, is the insane amount of confidence that artists have when they go in. And when you listen to an artist like an LL Cool J, it's nearly impossible not to have the same confidence while you're listening to him. It makes you feel the things that he's feeling at the time. One of the reasons why I love I'm Bad is before Mama Said Knock You Out. It's before he really had a lot of commercial success. It's really his first huge hit. And I love to put myself in his shoes when he was writing these lyrics, because he hadn't really done much yet. He had his first tape that had been out, and he was kind of thought of as the fringe rapper that was coming up, a young guy. But he's just a kid when he's writing some of these lyrics, and the lyrics are just it's like a kid just crushing you with mama jokes on the block. No rapper can rap quite like I can. I'll take a muscle-bound man and put a face in the sand. That's what he starts with. He comes out of the gate with that. And this is someone who's never had a number 1 hit, never had a platinum album, and he's already letting the world know he's the best rapper ever. If you think you can outrhyme me, yeah, boy, I bet, because I ain't met a who can do that yet. Again, he's a kid saying all of these things, kamikaze, take a look at what I've done. I used to rock in my basement. Now I'm number 1. He wasn't even number 1. He's writing these things before he's done that. And when you listen to the song, you can almost feel LL Cool J willing himself to becoming the number 1 rapper. Because at the time it was Run DMC. It was Kool Moe Dee. This song, he's taking shots at Kool Moe Dee. So, if you're of my age and you liked this music at the time, this was one of the first big beefs in rap, was Kool Moe Dee versus LL Cool J. It become in the 90s, it kind of was Tupac and Biggie and other people. But one of the first big beefs ever was Kool Moe Dee and LL Cool J. Kool Moe Dee hated LL Cool J and vice versa. So this song was kind of a retaliation. Kool Moe Dee made I Go to Work, where he crushes LL Cool J, but they went back and forth a few times. And this is kind of his beef coming out public. And just the words, the way he spits it, the way he talks to Kool Moe Dee, the way he just wills himself, sparring MCs, and I'ma never get with. When I retire, I'll get worshipped like an old battleship. My tongue's a chisel in this competition sculpture. I'm notorious, I'll crush you like a jelly bean. And my favorite line of the song, so forget Oreos, eat Cool J cookies. So this song, for anyone who wants to make it, anyone who wants to build something, build a name, build a brand, LL Cool J is giving you the blueprint of, if I write it on paper, it's going to happen. You just see him willing himself to greatness.
You get a lot of work done with this song's on.
And I understand, Frank, if you want to quit now, if you want to quit now after that, I understand, because that song is that powerful. I understand if you're like, look, let's wrap up this podcast, you win, hip hop's better.
Yeah, I mean, if you're working on your abs, like this is a really great song. Like, how much are you getting done while Cool J's rapping in the background?
So I went with Jenny and a whole bunch of friends when I was maybe like 23, 24, and we saw L Cool J. This was what, 2000, something, somewhere around there. We saw him at the House of Blues in Chicago, a very small venue, and he started with like a shirt, a vest, chains. By the end of it, he was literally in his underwear, no shirt, nothing, like women going nuts, including my wife. It was just pouring sweat. It was one of the best concerts I've ever seen in my life. It was incredible. And I don't remember the last like 3 songs because we had quite a few Miller Lights that night.
Absolutely. Of this, I am sure. I come back to how much work you getting done. Like, this is a great song. Like, I'm sure Mike Tyson boxes to this stuff in his underwear.
I get a ton of work done. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Inspirational.
But no doubt. I mean, you listen to that and then you take your headphones off and put on classical music and get some work done. All right. So I'm starting off with on the other end of the spectrum, Alan Jackson's Drive. So
Okay.
For me, do you know this song? You ever heard it?
I do know this song.
All right. Like, this is a bad song. So it's basically the song of a little kid looking up to his old man, and they go up to Georgia and they buy a boat. And that's how the whole song starts. It's painted red, stripe was white. It was 18 feet from bow to stern light. Secondhand from a dealer in Atlanta. I rode up with Daddy when he went there to get her. Like, to me, that's like everything that's like so cool about being a little kid hanging out with your dad. So this makes me think of like the times where I would do like projects or be a little kid hanging out with my dad. And now that I'm a dad with a young kid, like, my son is still pooping in a diaper, so we're not here yet. But like, I am very excited about the fact that I get to do some of this cool stuff with him at some point. So this is kind of the culmination of the first verse, right? He goes, it's just a crappy old boat, and he's just going around in this, this body of water. It's like a little lake or whatever. He goes, but I was king of the ocean when Daddy let me drive. So to me, that's just a bad song about just Americana, resurrecting something, making it cool, going out and doing it. Now, there's a second verse to this song, and it talks about an old short bed Ford. So short bed Ford's pickup truck. His uncle bought it in '64, but Daddy got it right because the engine was smoking. I'd sit up in the front seat, stretch my feet out to the pedals, smiling like a hero that just received his medal. It was just an old hand-me-down Ford with a 3-speed on a column and a dent in the door. A young boy, 2 hand on the wheel. I can't replace the way it made me feel. Now, this is the part I love about this song. The first time my dad, he didn't let me drive, he let me steer. It was like on the way to the dump. And this song right here, just a dirt road with trash on each side, but I was Mario Andretti when Dad let me drive. And I think I was like 6 and, steering in my dad's laps. This was before airbags and you could do that stuff. So like, to me, what this song fires me up about is a reclamation project. It gets me excited about just like all the things that I do in my life. I buy old houses, I fix them up. Like, it's all the good stuff. I got into construction because of my old man. And the way that this thing ends, which I love, is it's the way it started. It's with the old boat. It says 75 Johnson, electric choke. I used that line at my sister's wedding, and I gave a toast at my sister's wedding. And my sister was a little kid when this song was new. We used to do all kinds of cool stuff. We were driving somewhere, and that's the line we would always giggle when we would hear together, because nobody knows what the hell it means. It's obscure as hell. But to me, I don't know. That's what you work for, man, is those fun memories in life. So that's what this song does for me.
I think one thing I will say about country music that country is fantastic at is every country song can go place you at a different place in your life. It can take you back to something. They're fantastic at it, whether it's back to a football game, or back to a high school dance, or back to being a little kid fishing with your dad. They are absolutely fantastic at that.
What I love about it, Ian, is like I listen to this stuff all the time at work. And when a song like this comes on while I'm grinding away doing my work, I just smile for a second. It just makes me think of my little sister, or like that line comes up. I think about driving that truck with my dad, and it just transports you. And then you get back to work and grind through the that you're working on, and look forward to the next fun memory.
Good song. That's a good entry. Alan Jackson. Most things by Alan Jackson are going to be good entries. So I'm going to go. My second song is going to be by none other than Tupac Shakur, and I chose "Life Goes On." So the reason why "Life Goes On," in my opinion, is his best song is because of the tragic way that he died way too young. But he's almost, this song, if you look at the lyrics, is about moving on when your friends die. And for Tupac, that was a lot. So
Yeah.
Tupac not only had a lot of friends die too early, he had a lot of friends go to jail for life. So this song is about people he's lost for life that are just gone. And he's talking about how you have to mourn, but I got to keep living. I got to just keep living my life. And you and I have had these discussions a million times about my approach to life is just move on. If something bad happened, okay, whatever, move on. And this song is all about life short, live it hard, move on when bad things happen, life, death, loss. The lyrics, so it starts where he loses someone. So he takes a phone call, ring, 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 quiet y'all, incoming call. Plus this my homie from high school, he's getting by. It's time to bury another brother, nobody cry. So he's talking about learning how he learned of a high school friend who died in a drive-by shooting. So now that you're gone, I'm in the zone thinking I don't want to die all alone. And he's talking about, he's getting into the hard truths of what it was like for him growing up on these streets. And everything about it, though, is just fascinating. He'll talk about the good times with them and trying to make it last, I drank a fifth for that when you passed because life goes on. So it's kind of like, what he's saying is bad things happen in your life. Think about it for a little bit, close the chapter. So him pouring out a fifth on the ground is him saying, okay, that chapter's over. I'm going to miss you, but I got to move on. I got to move on. And that's the way the dude lived. He lived so hard, and he was the candle that just burned a little too bright all the time. And he's got a line in it that he talks about his own death, which I think it's a really powerful stanza in the song, most powerful for me. He talks about when he dies, and he predicts it's going to happen when I'm young, and he doesn't want people sitting around crying and having a boring funeral. So he says, bury me smiling with G's in my pocket, have a party at my funeral, let every rapper rock it. I love that line. That line is incredible of don't sit around crying for me when I go out, because I'm going to go out in a blaze of glory. And he did, which is wild, but don't sit around crying. Have a party at my funeral. And he says how he wants to be buried. Give me a paper and pen so I can write about my life of sin, a couple of bottles of gin in case I don't get in. And he's talking about heaven. If I don't get in, leave me with a couple of bottles of gin in the casket. It's wild. It is such a carpe diem kind of approach to life, a seize the day. He's at the very end, he finishes with, next time you see your homies, you're going to be on the top. They're going to be like, God damn, y'all came up. And that's right, because life goes on. And I love this. This song to me, look, I didn't grow up on streets like that. My homies from high school didn't all die, but his general approach to life, which is bad has happened to me and bad will happen to me in the future, but I'm going to live my life with as much fun as I possibly can. And I'm going to move on when bad happens. It inspires me all the time. Every bad thing that happens to me, I love this song. I listen to it, and it helps me just move to what's next.
So you and I have been friends for over a decade now. And one of the things that I think you've helped me with the most is just living in the moment. And we've talked about this a lot, but it's not something that I was great at prior to knowing you. And it's something I've gotten a lot better at. And that's what I think is cool about this song and hearing you talk about it is that, like, I mean, Tupac knew he had a ticking time bomb in his pocket and it wasn't going to last very long. So he's doing damn near everything he can. Plus, he knew he was no altar boy. So I'm bringing booze to kind of barter my way in. So I can come back to, I don't know how much work you're getting done while you're listening to this, but that's a damn good song.
I get a lot done when I listen to these songs.
You write really well when you listen to
this. They pump me up, man. They pump me up.
I know. This is what, like changing your oil and stuff. All right. So my number 4 song is incredibly difficult to argue with. It's The Devil Went Down to Georgia by Charlie Daniels Band. Now, Charlie Daniels just died not too long ago. This is an awesome freaking song. Like, if you don't know country, like if you know anything in country music, like this is the song, you know, right? Devil Went Down to Georgia. He was looking for a stole to steal. He was in a bind because he was way behind. He was willing to make a deal. Ian and I talk about this all the time. Don't be in a rush to make a deal. You're going to get out negotiated. Like, do not come in like arrogant because you're going to get your ass kicked. Like, you talk about high ego. The devil had a lot of ego. Country boy Johnny whoops his ass.
Is this, Frank, you've been to a lot of country concerts. Is this probably the most covered song by major stars too? I mean, this song gets covered a lot.
It gets covered a lot, but it's such a good song. Like if you
go to all country singers love this. It's
yeah. But if you go to Nashville, like in Nashville, if you're like on Lower Broadway, this song and Wagon Wheel, like everybody plays. Yeah, like everybody's set in a, you know, because everybody plays this one. All right. So he meets up with his young man and he goes, the devil jumps up on a hickory stump and he said, boy, let me tell you what, guess you didn't know it, but I'm a fiddle player too. And if you care to make a dare, I'll make a bet with you. And he goes, you play pretty good fiddle, boy, but give the devil his due. And like, this is the battle. They're about to get into battle. Like, earnest Johnny is going to battle the devil. And the stakes are set. I'm going to bet a fiddle of gold against your soul that I'm better than you. So if you win, you get a fiddle made of gold. If you lose, you're going to hell with Tupac. So you better be careful.
Drink some gin.
I mean, I don't know about you, Ian, but if it came down to hell or a gold fiddle, I don't know if I'm making that bet.
No. Feels lopsided. I don't like the odds.
Right. So the boy said, my name's Johnny, and it might be a sin, but I'll take your bet you're going to regret because I'm the best it's ever been. Now, Ian and I are talking about doing a podcast on ego. Johnny's got some freaking strong ego. He's going to trade his soul for a fiddle made of gold, and he's going to spend the rest of his years in hell if he loses. So, but the thing I like about this, which fires me up about it, is he's actually strong enough to be like, you know what? I put in the work. I did it. Like, I am good and I'm willing to take a shot. So he does. And that's kind of what, that's what Tupac was saying, right? Take a shot. This guy's taking a shot. But if you lose, devil gets your soul. I've talked about this. Those are real consequences. So the devil gets up there and he, plays his tune and it's good. And then Johnny says, which I love, just arrogant as hell. Like, you're a pretty good old son, but sit down in that chair right there. Let me show you how it's done. He's confident, he's arrogant, and he whoops the devil's ass. And this is my favorite part. Johnny says, devil, just come back if you ever want to try again. I done told you once, you son of a bitch, the best it's ever been. Like, if you're going to win, you better bask in the glory. And that's what he's doing right there.
Look, that's a strong entry. I'm not going to lie. I'm a big fan of that song too. That's a really strong entry. Frank, do you think that, that's a top 5 country song ever right there? And I think lots of songs are really good because they have a catchy beat or they have a good hook or a good voice. I think that's been, Zach Brown puts it on albums. Zach does it at every concert.
Yeah, it's true.
I think that's a story that people resonate with, right? That confidence in yourself before you're going to go negotiate something, before you're going to close a big deal, before you're going to go do anything, right? Is like, do you believe in yourself so much that you would bet everything on yourself?
my number one song is the stakes are different, but that's what this whole podcast is for us. We were two very, very successful executives that said, this life sucks. We want to go do something else. And we're doing it. And that's what that is. Like, you're literally putting your belief in yourself up against an eternity in hell. Like, how could you possibly be more self-confident? I mean, maybe if you have LL Cool J shoes and Kangol hat, but besides that, that's it.
That's it. And that's what people do when they leave a steady paycheck, a good one. They leave a fiddle of gold, against their soul to go do something else. So I think that's a powerful song for a startup owner. It's one that I resonate with. Good entry, dude. Good entry. I'm giving you a little credit here.
Thanks, Ian. Now, as you transition to this one, Ian's going to go into Juicy number 3. I mean, who doesn't love this song? Like this, like, how many times have we listened to this song in a boombox in Vegas?
I mean, I feel like it's cheating a little bit to use Juicy because it's a really good song. It's like you using Charlie Daniels, but
right.
For the record, I introduced this song to Frank.
Great.
Frank had been on a decade bender of just country, and I got him back into the hip hop pretty hard. So this one, Notorious B.I.G., Juicy, has one of the greatest introductions of any song. So it's a cold open before the beat drops, and Biggie comes out and says, "This album is dedicated to all the teachers that told me I'd never amount to nothing." And goes on to say a few other people that turned off his heat, and is pretty much his big middle finger to everyone that said this kid from Brooklyn could never make it doing what he was doing. And so I think this song is so powerful because it just represents the dream. It represents anyone who's ever had a dream of doing something big, and everything about it. He doesn't talk about how he did it. So this is the difference between this song. All he talks about is, here's where I was and here's where I am today. And this could be you. And I think it gave hope to all those kids in Brooklyn, to all the kids that are struggling in life. And everyone does, right? Everyone had a poster on their wall at some point as a kid. It might've been Michael Jordan. It might've been, a rock and roll band. It could have been anything, but you had a poster and you dreamed of doing something big. And everyone can kind of resonate with that teacher that was like, the odds of making Major League Baseball. Like, we all heard that from some, terrible teacher at some point in our life. So when he starts with, this album's dedicated to all the teachers that told me I'd never amount to nothing. God, who does that not resonate with, Frank?
English teachers, but besides that, everybody else.
So I didn't have a lot of people telling me I wouldn't succeed. I didn't grow up in that exact kind of, area, but I also wasn't the obvious pick for most likely to succeed. And, I'm 5'10", average athlete, average grades in high school, but when I hear those words, it fuels me a little bit. It gets me fired up. And, Biggie was selling crack, as a 12-year-old, and is, with a single mom. It's amazing what he did. So he, the words, it was all a dream. I used to read Word Up magazine. Word Up was a rap magazine in the 80s that, following, he's saying, I used to follow all these rappers, Salt and Pepper and Heavy D up in the limousine, hanging pictures on his wall, just like I talked about. And he's saying to everyone listening, I was a fan like you. If you're listening to my song right now, I was you. And that's always powerful. That's always, it doesn't matter who it is. When someone says, I was just like you, that's good writing. That's good storytelling. If someone can sit in front of you, Frank and I worked for a home builder, and our home builder was a teacher, and he started working for a home building company on the weekends to make some extra money and change careers. It's just powerful when his career, he was dead broke from Pennsylvania and started a multi-billion-dollar organization. When he would tell that story in front of a bunch of sales reps, it's inspiring. How do you not look at that and think, damn, that could be me? He didn't say, I was born with a silver spoon and I was rich. He said, I was like you. And that's what Biggie does really well in this song.
This story is the American dream. And this is the difference between hip hop and country. Hip hop, you've got this song. Country's taken this song and ripped it off and made 400 songs that are just like it. They're not nearly as good, but it's the same recipe.
Yeah. So his lyric of born sinner, the opposite of a winner. Remember when I used to eat sardines for dinner? You just hear that and you're like, damn, because you know it's true. He was sitting in a house with no heat because the landlord turned it off, selling crack, eating sardines. Mom's a Jamaican immigrant who works as a preschool teacher, doing the best she could, but no one's raising Biggie. And he's telling you what it was like. And then he talks about his change. I made the change from a common thief to up close and personal with Robin Leach. Oh, it's so good. So good. Girls used to diss me. Now they write letters because they miss me. Living life without fear, putting 5 carrots in my baby girl's ear. Lunches, brunches, interviews by the pool. Considered a fool because I dropped out of high school. Everything about it is look where I was, look where I'm at now. Look how obnoxiously better my life is. It can happen to you. It's impossible to not be inspired by, that big voice of his. One of Frank and I's favorite lines in this is, my whole crew is lounging, celebrating every day, no more public housing. It's awesome. We didn't grow up in public housing, but I certainly didn't grow up with a hell of a lot of money in Trenton, Michigan. My dad was a steel worker. Mom was a teacher. We had some lean years when dad was laid off from the steel mill. So when I hear that, I get kind of emotional. I get excited because I know my life is in a lot better place now than it was when I was growing up. And that's what my parents wanted for me. They wanted for me to have more and their grandkids to have more than I had. So I think all of the lyrics in this song, birthdays was the worst days. And what he's saying is there were no presents, no heat, wonder why Christmas missed us. And then he says, now we sip champagne when we thirsty. Damn right, I like the life I live because I went from negative to positive. And even the chorus, the chorus is kind of, it's to every kid listening to that. You know very well who you are. Don't let them hold you down. Reach for the stars. You had a goal, but not that many because you're the only one. I'll give you good and plenty. It's just awesome. It's by far his best song. And, the beat's great. His voice is great, but it's aspirational. He doesn't need to tell you how he did it. He just needs to tell you it's possible. You can go from dead broke, crack dealing, in jail to the biggest star in the country. It can happen to you.
So clearly this song is incredible and we both love it. So I don't work to it because I can't get done when I'm listening to stuff like this, but it's a great song. It's fun to dance to. It's fun to party to. But this fits very much with what Ian and I talk about all the time. Having goals, going out and achieving those goals and enjoying it when you do it. So Ian, I don't remember when it was. It was like 2012, 2011, 10, 11, 12, 13, somewhere in there. I still live in Charlottesville. You and I made an agreement that we were going to each do something cool. And if we did, we were going to buy a case of really expensive wine. And it was several $1,000s. It was not inexpensive. And with it, it came with a ceremonial box. And on the box, you can have anything you want inscribed on the box. Do you remember what you put on your box?
It was a lyric from this. I don't know exactly which lyric it was.
And mine was a different lyric than yours, but the same song. We didn't talk about this. Mine was no more public housing. Because what that meant to me is I didn't live in public housing, but I worked for a publicly traded company and I didn't work there anymore. And I just closed a $100,000 deal and I was really excited. And I just blew a couple grand on something I wanted, which was just a bunch of wine. And it felt so good to do it. And it was fun. And I still have that box. It's 7 to 10 years old at this point. And I still have it. I still see it. I still smile when I go down and look at, get a different bottle of wine. And that's what it's all about. Like, this is the American dream, lived from a kid who's clearly very different than Ian and me, but in a way, and it's packaged in the story. It's fun. It's upbeat. And if you've ever seen the movie Notorious, have you ever seen that movie?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's incredible how, like, if that story is even close to true, how they come up with the song is just a blast.
It's great.
Yeah. All right. That's, it's going to be hard to compete with. Very, very, very
Well,
challenging.
give it your best. Give it your best shot.
I'm gonna do my best, Ian. I'm gonna give it what I can. So I'm gonna go a bit morose, and I'm gonna go what music is at its absolute finest, which is a suspension of belief and some willingness to allow your imagination to run wild. And this is a song called "The Ride," recorded by many, many different people, but it's the story of a poor kid hitching a ride out of the country into a better life. Not too different from Biggie, slinging crack rock to get out of the life that he had, so he can have heat for him and his mom. He's stumbling from Montgomery, has his guitar on his back. Stranger stops beside him in an antique Cadillac. The guy who picks him up is half drunk and hollow-eyed, and he says, "It's a long walk to Nashville. Would you like a ride, son?" He sits down in the front seat, turn on the radio, and the songs come out of the speakers were solid country gold. So you just get this sense that you're getting into like this, like, I don't know, like this old caddy, leather seats, it reeks of smoke, like the windows are like tinted out.
By the way, isn't it kind of a staple in country music that someone runs into a stranger? There are a lot of strangers in country songs where some stranger gives you an amazing advice or some kind of life lesson. That's a Kenny Chesney staple. He's always running into a bartender or a guy in a fishing boat that gives him some life-changing advice. It's not completely believable.
It's kind of like rock and Timberlands. They're just all over rap. I mean, it's the same thing.
There's always a stranger. Who are these strangers? I never run into strangers that changed my life. That happens all the time in country music.
It's the truth.
Sorry, proceed.
All right. So you're in the front seat of this car. It's smoky. It's the equivalent of being in like a lounge. And he says, "Hey, Drifter, can you make folks cry when you play and sing? Have you paid your dues? Can you moan the blues? Can you bend them guitar strings? Hey boy, can you make folks feel what you feel inside? Because if you're big star bound, let me warn you, it's a long, hard ride." And what I hear with this is not too similar from what I heard above with Johnny playing for the Golden Fiddle. Did you put in the work? Are you the real deal? Are you going to make it? Or are you going to get chewed up and you're going to spit back out? And the difference between that, it's just genre choice. To me, country music is a little bit more about warning and preparation about what's coming. Rap music is a little bit more about, let me show you how I did it. But this is someone who's been there, who's done it, and is asking the kid, you got the goods? Or are you going to be hiking your ass back at the end of this song? And here's what really is cool. So if you never heard the song, and a lot of people probably haven't, the guy driving cries just south of Nashville, turns the car around. He says, "This is where you get out, boy, because I'm going back to Alabama." And as I step out of the Cadillac, I said, "Mister, many thanks." He said, "You don't have to call me Mister. The whole world calls me Hank." So the guy driving the car is the ghost of Hank Williams, not Hank Williams Jr., Hank Williams Sr. And he's asking this kid, like, you got a dream. It's great. Everybody's got a dream. You got the goods. Now, this is really cool. And I've never actually heard this, but in half internet research, I found this. He goes,
the only research done on the Let Me Speak to a Manager podcast.
Yeah.
Only research ever done.
Half
Google internet.
So it was a deep cut from Wikipedia. There's another verse that I never heard. And it says this, you got a lot of competition out there. Now that sound, it ain't like it was in the 50s when I was here. And then you got young guns, you got Waylon Jennings and Willie Nelson, you got Clark and Billy Joe Shaver and David Allan Coe. And he even got my son. So that's what's really cool about country that I'll make you guess. He's telling you exactly everything that we said to this point. Like, you got to put in the work or you're going to be hiking your ass back home.
Another fantastic choice. I love this song. What I just love about it is any venture you go into, When you don't know enough about a subject, you tend to underestimate how difficult it will be to master. There's actually a couple of psychologists that did something on this, the Dunning-Kruger effect, something like that,
Right.
where the more you know about a topic, the more you respect it. The less you know about it, the less you think it will be difficult. And this song is all about that. It's about someone who's done it. And Hank Williams suffered a lot to become that star. Alcoholism, drug addiction,
No relationship with his son.
marriage crushed. Him and Hank Jr. were never around each other, didn't see each other. It's Hank Williams Sr. is legend because of what he went through, famous for that. So this is a song about that psychological effect of, especially when you're young, you underestimate how easy certain things will be. Everyone writes CEO as your 10-year ambitions on the first resume. And after 5 years, you're like, I don't want that job. That's God, I don't want that job. That sounds hard. And I think it's a beautiful song in that it's a reminder that anything worth having, being a big star in this song, anything worth having, you've got to be willing to just grind. It's going to be hard. It's going to be long. And if you're not willing to do it, quit dreaming. Stop. Go find another dream that you love enough that you'll go grind for.
And when the rubber hits the road, even if you grind, are you good enough to make people feel what you feel? Because if you're not going to make it, even if you grind.
Yeah. Hard work helps. Do you have talent at what you're going after? Right.
Yeah.
You and I don't have musical talent. So our work ethic that we put in companies would have been a waste of time. Sometimes you're just in the wrong context to work hard. You got to have talent at what you're doing.
And not only that, you got to point your effort in the right direction. Like if you and I worked this hard about being underwear models, like we'd fail. Like you got to pick something that you're good at, you have that has a chance to be successful. Because if you don't, you're going to put in the grind and the toil, and it's not going to be what you want in the end. Totally.
Good choice. So number 2 for me, I had to get a Detroit rapper into this. And everyone listening to this is going to be like, of course, he picked the most obvious song. But the reason why I chose this, it's Eminem, it's Lose Yourself. I want to kind of deconstruct this because as someone who writes all the time, I'm fascinated by classic story arcs. And the reason why this is Eminem's most popular song is it follows the same plot line of any popular movie of all time. There's a hero, there's high stakes, there's a villain, there's a hero who suffers tremendously until the very end. There is a turn, there is an inciting incident. So I kind of want to go through some of those because he literally wrote this song. And it's fascinating because it's for the movie 8 Mile and kind of follows the arc of 8 Mile. And so interesting that he would write it in a classic movie plotline. But that's the way most rap songs do not follow anything like this. Actually, most songs in general do not follow typical movie plot lines. So
let's talk about this a little bit too. When did this song come out? Do you remember? 04?
I'm about to throw a number out that's going to be wrong. 03, 02 or 03.
So up until this point, Eminem's kind of a punk. Like he's really good, but like in my life, I thought he was like he was not somebody I related to. He was like on TRL Live back when I knew what channel MTV was, and he like showed up on stage, like a bunch of pills came out of his pocket. Like he just seemed like he was Slim Shady, and I couldn't relate to him. But that movie and this song was the first time I was like, this guy is speaking my for me, it was the first time I was able to really like connect to his music.
You know what? It's I think that's a good point. I loved Eminem from the gate because he was Detroit and he was great on Dre's second Chronic album. I thought he was great in it. But you're right. Most of what he wrote was just kind of clowning around.
Yep.
Right. Like all of his songs you could tell he was an amazing talent. He was a great lyricist. He was a great writer. But he was always kind of just clowning and talking about drinking and drugs and everything else. This is one of his first songs that got very serious, in my opinion, at least, when it came out. So
So I continued the half-assed internet research. This film came out in 2000, the fall of 2002. And what you're talking about, and I did like him from the Chronic 2001, which came out between 99 and 01. They released all the songs, the album came out. So there was a little bit of this before, but that was the moment for me where he really turned the corner.
Yeah, he's still, I mean, the Chronic came out, that was Dre's album, but then he had the Slim Shady LP, the Marshall Mathers LP. So
Right.
he had some other things, but if you listen to most of those, there, you know, there were Stan, there were a few others, but he got like, this is around the time when he started writing. A lot of his songs were deeply personal and serious, you know, a little bit different approach to life where he was. But the story arc, there's an opening act, just like most movies, there's an opening act, and that's this is another great cold intro, just like Notorious B.I.G. If you had one shot, one opportunity to seize everything you ever wanted, would you capture it or would you let it slip? And his inciting incident, which is usually where the turn takes place. So his inciting incident, his palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy. And so when you hear that, anyone who's ever had to get up on a stage, give a public speaking event of any kind, give a speech somewhere, I don't care how many times you've done it, you get a little nervous. Your palms get sweaty, your knees get weak, your heart starts racing. I speak all the time in front of groups. It still happens to me every time. Even if I'm going to give a little toast, you get a little nervous when it happens. So great songs put you in the shoes of the person who's writing.
I'm going to tell you a quick story real quick. So like getting the chops to go on stage and speak is not easy. Like I can't even imagine what it's like to be like one of these superstars who does it in front of 60,000 people. But I'm walking on stage one time at CG, and this guy, Tim Goff, who passed away, you've met him, Ian. He goes to me, like I'm literally like walking up on stage, and he's like, so do you get nervous? Like what an ass. I was like, I usually don't, Tim, but thanks for making me aware of it.
Well, that's like what's B Rabbit's friend in the movie where when he's getting ready to go out there, he goes, "You nervous? They're gonna bring up all that stuff about you, like shooting yourself in the leg, and they stole your girl." And he's like, "Hey man, thanks." But he ended up using it, but it sounds a lot like it, so it's almost the same. Oh, Cheddar Bob, the guy that shot himself in the leg.
Yeah, talking about.
That was your Cheddar Bob. That's hilarious. But then he goes through and he suffers. He's choking now. Everybody's joking now. The clock's run out. Time's up. Over. Blow. And, you hear that. And I think a lot of times in your career, when you make a mistake or something, it's really easy to just think, I blew it. I blew everything. That was my one shot. And there really is no one shot. I think that gets overdone a lot as you put so much pressure on one thing. This presentation, I need to kill it. I only got one shot. And there's always another shot. There's always another shot that's coming down the road, that's coming after there. But when you listen to him sing that, every time I have that shot, I do put that kind of pressure on myself. I do treat every major event, every deal I'm trying to close, every major thing I'm doing, I make it seem like it's the end of the world. So I feel him when he says the clock ran out, time's up, over. And to me, there's a villain in every good story. I think the villain in this, and Frank, I would love your piece of it. I think the villain is self-doubt. I think he's fighting himself in this song, which is fascinating, right? It's not, the villain he doesn't even talk about battling someone. He doesn't talk about the other rapper beating him. He's talking about himself. He choked. He couldn't get the words out of his mouth. So the villain is not the other artist that's up on the stage. He's the villain. He's fighting himself. He's fighting his own self-doubt, and maybe in a secondary level, the villain is poverty, because like Notorious B.I.G., he talks a lot about that. So I think that's the villain of the story. Would you agree with that?
I do, actually, very much so. And I think one of the things that turned me off early to hip hop was the boastfulness of it. Like LL Cool J's second album, he's telling you he's the best. Like the last album sold like 32 copies. Like, you're not the best, dude. But as hip hop, or you're not the best yet, as hip hop started to mature and as hip hop started to kind of age a bit as a genre, the storytelling got better. And this storytelling is so incredible. It's so relatable. It's relatable to everybody because he has the talent. He has the skill. Sure, he's got things he's working against, but in this instance, he's put in the work. He's done what he needs to. He knows he can do it. In lesser moments, he's risen up and he's done incredibly well. And now the last hurdle is himself. And who hasn't felt that?
The stakes, he gives you the stakes, lonely roads. God only knows he's grown farther from home. He's no father. He goes home and barely knows his own daughter.
Yep.
That I think whether you're a rapper or a traveling salesman or a manager, I traveled all the time in my last job, and I'd be gone Monday. I'd be in Cincinnati on Tuesday. On Wednesday, I'd be going to Cleveland. Then Thursday down in Charlotte, and Friday I'd get home. And you're tired, and your kids are young, so that resonates with me when I hear something like that. It makes me think about it. And then there's an all is lost moment, all the pain amplified by the fact that I can't get by with my 9 to 5. I can't provide the right life for my family. And you just feel it building up in him. I think with most people, you get some of those feelings and it's like, you can either just hide and quit and give up, or you can get pissed and get mad at yourself and go fight. And he has this awakening, no more games. I'm gonna change what you call rage. And that's awesome. That's such a powerful line where he just says, he tells you about how bad his life is sucking. It's not getting there. And I'm going to make this work. Success is my only option. Failure's not. I love that line. The line is so good. And I think for anything you're chasing or going after in your career and life, you can either let all that pain just eat you up, or you can let it fuel you and get you pissed and be better. And this song's about that. You don't even know what happens. He just tells you, here's what's happening. Feet fail me not. And that's it. And he leaves it up to you as the listener to figure out what happens next. And that's, to me, it's an incredible story arc. It's one of the best written songs in any genre ever. And it's written like a movie.
Yeah, it's incredible. I want to talk about two things. So the clock's run out, time's up, over, blah, right? We talked about that, like it's your only moment. There's a country song and it's called Fancy. And it's been around for years. And basically this destitute family, and like the only shot is for Fancy to get picked up at a dance. She's got to look great.
Reba McEntire?
Yeah, but the song bounced around for years before we recorded it. But it's the same thing. And in it, there's poverty. People are dying. It kind of feels like the song kind of feels like it's set in like, I don't know, the Grapes of Wrath era. It's like really, really desperate.
Yeah.
And with that desperation, there's one shot. Like you got one shot. And what Ian said is it's not one shot. But that's something that Ian and I take for granted. We don't have one shot. We get to screw up and we get to do it again. We have built a margin of error in our lives that gives us a shot to have more than one chance. But that doesn't happen for everybody. Like that's the thing where there's just desperation and it's like, this is it. But it pivots very nicely into something else I want to say. Success is my only option. Failure's not. We used a term in one of our other podcasts about burning boats. When you burn the boats, you can't turn back. When you have desperation behind you, when you know that there's absolutely no way humanly possible, I will not fail, you won't fail. And giving it, like we've never done a podcast on this, but we talked about it, we both love it. Plan B is your plan to fail, is an Arnold Schwarzenegger line. Like that's what's in this song. Like I got everything working against me. I'm my worst enemy, but I am choosing 100% not to do anything other than succeed. And he succeeds.
It's a beautiful thing. Most beautiful things come from the city of Detroit, if we're being honest.
All right, I'm going to go to my number 2. You ready?
Yes.
All right. So my number two, I don't think Ian ever heard that song before today. It's Only in America by Brooks and Dunn. And there's a lot of themes in all of this stuff that are similar. They overlap. But basically, this song to me is the American dream. Sets it up the way it should, right? Sun's coming up over New York City. As soon as you think about New York City, the first thing you think of is traffic jam. Staring out at faces in a rearview mirror, the bus from a bus driver's perspective, looking out at the promised land. One kid dreams of fame and fortune. One kid helps pay the rent. One kid could end up going to prison. One might just be president. Only in America. So let's just go back to that. Kids dreaming of fame and fortune. Basically, everybody we've talked about here. The guy in the ride who gets in the car. One kid helps pay the rent. I mean, that's what Ian talked about with Biggie selling crack. One kid ends up going to prison. I mean, Biggie and Tupac both. One ends up might be president. I mean, not everybody on this board is dead yet. Who knows? So it's one of those things where it's like LL got a shot. So that's what's so cool about this is, as screwed up as America is, it's the place where dreams come to be reality. I mean, Ian and I have a podcast. Like, I wouldn't have thought that about us at some point, that we would have thought that we have a voice to do something like this when we were kids, or that we'd have been able to achieve what we've achieved in business. Like, those are things that it's because of where we live, and it's because of just great opportunity. We dream as big as we want to. We all get a chance. Everybody gets to dance. Only in America. There's another story in here that's just cool as hell. So, sun's coming up in New York, beginning of the song. Here's how the song ends. Sun's going down on an LA freeway. Opposite end of the country, still on a road. Newlyweds in the back of a limousine. They're a welder's son and a banker's daughter. Just people from middle America. I mean, I'm the son of an electrician, and Ian's the son of a steel worker and a principal. All they want is everything. So that's what we do in America. We don't want small, we want huge. He's a singer in a band, and they're trying, but it's not working out. She's a failed actress. They might just have to go back to Oklahoma. But they took their shot. They're in California. They took their shot. And even if they go back to California, what they talk about is they took that shot, and they can go back home and just talk about what could have been. Eminem made it. These folks might not have. But hey, they had a chance to take a shot.
I love the way it starts positive and it kind of ends with, not everyone's going to get this.
Yep.
I think that's pretty strong. My line in this, I just heard this song for the first time today. My previous experience with Brooks and Dunn was the Boot Scootin' Boogie, which I crush at every wedding. I'm awesome with that song. But anyway, my favorite line in this whole song is, all they want is everything. I think that line is awesome. I think that's the aspirations. I think that's this country. I think that's how you're raised. Every kid growing up is told they can be president. You could do whatever you want. And over time, some of those dreams start to die out, and that's okay. You get other dreams that you might not have thought were more important to you. A lot of people, that's parenting. That's, other things just become more important. But, when you're younger, all you want is everything. And that's all right. That's all right. Go for everything. And, if you come up with a little bit short, you still ended up with a hell of a lot.
And that's when Tupac comes in. Just celebrate and enjoy what you got.
That's right. And bring a couple of bottles of gin in case you don't get in. So my number one song, and this is my favorite hip hop song of all time. I couldn't get through a list without The Good Doctor. So Forgot About Dre by Dr. Dre. And I want to talk a little bit about what was going on in Dre's life on this, in this song, and why it's very important to me, why it resonates so much. So another one that starts with just an incredible first line. all of my songs seem to have a great first line. So it starts with, y'all know me, still the same OG, but I've been low key. And so this is him coming back and saying, I'm Dr. Dre. I don't need to introduce myself to you. It's a little bit like the special you saw with Seinfeld, where he said, I think at this point, I don't need to introduce myself, or something to that nature.
Right.
We know each other well. So, when this song came out, Dre was a legend. I'd been listening to Dre my whole life. So Dr. Dre was putting the beats down for NWA. I was hearing him when I was, 10 years old, listening to him. He did The Chronic, which was an incredible, like, that tape got so much play for me in high school.
93.
With Snoop Dogg, absolutely. He did some solo stuff. So at that point, he was a legend, how many great songs he had done. He was on Snoop Dogg's Doggy Style. He produced all of that stuff. And so when I heard this, he was already the best, and I was excited about this CD coming out. So Hated On by Most of These Fools with no cheese, no deals, and no G's. And I remember when I heard this song, I remember thinking, like, who hates on Dre? Like, no one hates on Dre. He's an icon. Like, it's saying someone's hating on Madonna. No one hates on an icon. But I did some research on this. So he had, like, 5 years earlier, he had left Death Row. So he left two different records. He left Eazy-E's record album first, and then he left Death Row. And the reason being, he didn't have much ownership in either one of them. So he was just an artist getting paid. He was an employee. So the way to look at this, Frank, is Dr. Dre was an employee for the first 15 years of his life, or at least his career, 10 to 15 years. He was an employee. He was paid. He got bonuses. He wasn't getting any equity. Eazy-E got all of it, right? That's why Ice Cube left also. And his equity was terrible in Death Row. Suge Knight kind of worked him over and was getting most of it too. So everything he had done to that point, he had done with others. And then he created Aftermath Records. And that was all his. That was Dre's Cava companies. That was Dre's 5 on 4 group. And the first few albums he did were terrible. They just didn't do well. So he had a group called The Firm that he put together, and he really wasn't the talent. He was just producing. That's what he liked to do most of the time. And they, albums that people never heard of. Dr. Dre Presents The Aftermath, The Album, First Round Knockout. You hadn't heard of those. There's not one song on it that I could even tell you about that made the top 50. So at this point, people were saying Aftermath flopped. It's a joke. People were saying that he probably went broke. And is it going to go bankrupt? It'd been just a brutal start. And so his next line is, did y'all think I'm gonna let my dough freeze? Please. You better bow down on both knees. Who you think taught you to smoke trees? Who you think brought you the oldies, Eazy-E's, Ice Cubes, and DOCs, the Snoop D-O double G's, and the group that said mother the police. So he's saying, hold on a second. I'm older. I'm not a has-been, right? And I think so this resonates with me, and I don't know about you, but after GE, I went to another company. And it was like, okay, I was really good at GE. Am I going to still be good? Am I going to be able to bring that magic?
Is it me or is it them?
Is it me or is it them? Then I did really good at another company. I left to do it all on my own. And it was like, okay, I'm always thinking, have I peaked? I'm always stressing out, am I peaked? Have you seen the best of me? And what I love about this is Dre's like, wait a second. I'm the dude that brought you NWA, Snoop Dogg. I brought you Ice Cube. I produced all of that. I'm the same guy. I still have the same talent, and I'm announcing that I'm not going anywhere and I'm not a has-been. And so at this point, what I love about this song is Dre saying it's not about the money. I'm rich. I want respect. I want to remind you that I can do this myself and that my record album's good. So he says, y'all better listen up closely. All of you that said that I turned pop or the firm flopped, you're the reason I've been getting no sleep. And I love that. When I listen to that again, he's rich. He's wildly successful. He's a Hall of Famer. He's multiple platinum, but he's telling you that haters are keeping him from sleeping peacefully. So a guy with all of that, living in a mansion, is not sleeping because others are telling him that he flopped. All I get is hate mail all day saying Dre fell off. What? Because I've been in the lab with a pen and a pad trying to get this label off. I love this line, because when you start a business, you kind of go off the grid. I know I did. You know, you go from everyone sees you all the time, you got a big job, you're talking to your network, to you're scribbling on whiteboards and trying to figure out how to spend your day and what to do. And, you know, I look at my last 3 years as being in a lab with a pen and a pad, and I went off the grid. And generally, when you start a business, you're just eating a big plate of all the time. Like that for this podcast, we started like 7 months ago. No one even knew what we were doing. We're just quietly recording stuff, but not sharing it with anyone. And I just love that. And he kind of finishes with, I'm not having that. This is my millennium of aftermath. Won't be anything after that. Give me one more platinum plaque. Rap, you can have it back. So good. He doesn't care about the money. He wants you to know, I'm the same dude, and I'm going to crush it. And I'm going to show you that I've got nothing left to prove, but I'm still talented. And it's such an incredible comeback story. It's a startup story. It's about starting a business. It's a rebirth story, and he called the shot. This is one of the best selling hip hop albums of all time. It brought Eminem out into the fold. He found Eminem in here. Chronic 2001 killed it. This song to me is just everything about business, life, fighting, coming back. It's my favorite hip hop song, and it's by far the one that inspires me the most in business.
So again, this is where I've won this by landslide. This has been on every workout tape I've had since 2001, but this is not for work. But I want to kind of come back and touch on a couple things, right? So Straight Outta Compton's the movie, which most people have seen, but the Defiant Ones is a 4-part documentary. I think it's like 6 hours long. You've seen that, right? It's just incredible. And it kind of talks about the struggles and a lot of what we're talking about here. Y'all better listen to them closely. You think that the firm flopped. Like, that is just awesome. Like, that's what we've talked about putting a chip on your shoulder. Like this is the difference between being satisfied and having an ego and pushing yourself in a way where it's saying, I'm not going to just be satisfied with a corner office job. I'm not going to just be satisfied with these things that I've had in the past. Like, I absolutely, like, you make others your enemy and you give yourself the fuel that you need. Haters were keeping Dre from sleeping peacefully. This reminds me of the line in World War II. We've just awoken a sleeping giant. Like, you've gotten somebody who now is immensely talented, who has incredible resources, and now they're pissed.
You've given them motivation. You've given them motivation to work 16-hour days, even though they don't need to.
They're not, because when you're pissed off and it's properly funneled, like, watch out. I say this still. I'm gonna get back in the lab with a pen and a pad. Like, that is what it's about. It's like planning season every year in your business. When you want to iterate and change, you got to get back in the lab. Like, what I'm doing in my business now is I've got a lot of people who run things. And I'm trying to kick a few things off. And, like, I'm on vacation. I'm in a freaking rented office space doing this because it's something I want to do and I'm passionate about it. But if you don't have that level of motivation, you never get there. But realizing that you do have to go off the grid and you have to take a couple of steps back to go forward is right there. The other thing I think that's really cool is the Suge Knight thing. He had to reinvent himself because, like, Suge Knight went to jail. Like, he couldn't, that wasn't replicatable. So he overcorrected and it was kind of lame. But what he realized is, hey, I can still be edgy, but I don't have to break the law and go to jail. And that's, I don't know that line very well, but that's a line he had to find. And once he found that line, he's like, I found it. I'm calling my shot. Rap, you can have it back, which is just awesome.
It's great. And even someone with his talents and his resources, what I love about it is he still has to gin up motivation for himself. It's just like Tom Brady saying, no one thinks we're any good. And it's like, well, who said that? No one's saying you're not any good. People are saying I'm too old. We're too slow. We can't, like, no one's saying that you have 5 championships, but he convinced himself, I'm not sleeping at night. I got all these haters. I'm going to go show them. And it's like, he had nothing left to prove, but he's still doing it today, finding new ways to motivate himself.
And that's the trick, right? Dee Snider, who we've talked about, Twisted Sister, he couldn't come up with the angst that made him famous, and because of that, they had a couple good albums, and then that's it. They're on like an 80s hairband album, and that's it. Nothing new's coming out, but Dre's still pumping out good stuff. So let's. I'm going to move over into my favorite song, which is "What I Almost Was." So, as an overview to what I almost was, and unlike Only in America, where might not work out for people, person in this story, who I think is Eric Church, high school football star, going to be a college football star, takes a play and his knee gets blown out, tries to go to college, but he's not as good as he was, and he gets sent home packing. Leaves the college and flicks off the coach and goes back home and moves in with his mom, and he has to rehabilitate himself, he's got to come up with a new goal. While he's doing that, not sure what the new goal is, he meets a girl. She's beautiful, she's rich, and he kind of fast forwards and looks ahead at his life, and he says, for the rest of my life, I'm gonna be wedded to this beautiful woman and a rich dad, and the only person I'm going to be accountable to is the two of them, and that's no kind of life for me. And then the third thing he does is he just says, screw it, I'm moving to Nashville, kind of like the guy from The Ride, buying a guitar, and I'm going to get in there and I'm going to just play. And in this story, he isn't rich. He isn't famous. He's just a guy on a bar stool playing for tips. But I think the coolest thing is this. Been putting in time on 16th Avenue, pouring out my heart for tips on a stool. I ain't making a killing, but then there's those nights when the songs come together and hits them just right. The crowd's on their feet because they can't get enough of the music I make and I love. And the note I put was, he ain't rich, he could have been, but he's doing what he wants and how he wants to do it. And that is how we define freedom. And isn't that what we're all really chasing anyways?
I love it. I love right out of the gate, the first stanza, it always hits people. We're all hopeful that we're going to be better athletes than most of us are going to be. For any of us that have known an actual professional athlete, they're so much better than the average Joe. It's outrageous. But, where he's talking about, he's going to get a 4-year, full ride, and everyone kind of thinks some of that. I'll grow a little more in high school. I'll get big enough. I'll be faster. And I think with time, most people look back and think, I'm kind of glad I didn't try to keep pursuing sports after high school. Kind of glad I moved on. So that resonated with me. Frank just played this one for me. I just learned it, but that one kind of resonated with me. I right out of the gate, I could have tried to walk on at Purdue on the baseball team, and I had to start all over again and be a bullpen catcher, and I probably wouldn't have been any good, and I would have wasted an entire 4 years of college just saying I was sort of on who gives a shit? I had more fun doing what I did, so I'm glad I didn't do that. I'm glad I didn't try to proceed on some of this. So I think this song reminded me of the other country song by Garth Brooks, which is I Thank God for Unanswered Prayers, where you just look at what your life could have been, but when you stop and look with experience, you think, no, I wouldn't change it. We talked about this in our regrets podcast. You and I struggle to come up with real regrets because we're pretty happy with the way things are going. And if we went back and changed something, what else would we have to give up today that we enjoy what we're doing? Probably wouldn't change many things about it because it would change too many other things.
Yeah, it's I want to wrap it up by saying this. All of these songs to me are very similar. They're all about what makes America incredible. They are. It's about interesting people. It's about people overcoming. It's about people choosing. It's about people picking. It's about people doing what's best for them and going out and creating a life, hopefully that you want. And there's two kind of cool stories in this, and they both happen to come back to high school football. I was telling my parents I was going to be a pro football player in middle school, and I clearly wasn't good enough. And this was the first time my mom ever said to me, "Are you sure?" Like, she questioned it. Like, we had just gotten our kicked by much better athletes, and she's like, "Are you sure?" But she wasn't in a way that was condemning and anything. I still had fun playing, but I was 6th or 7th grade, and the seed of doubt crept in my head. But about 5-6 years later, I'm a senior in high school, and I make it all county in Broward County, which is just above Dade. It's where Fort Lauderdale is. It's a hotbed of high school athletes and kids who go on to play in college. So I graduated from high school. I don't play in college. Years go by. I'm 5 or 6 years removed from high school, and I get a phone call from the Sun Sentinel. And it's one of in my head it's Dan Lebatard, but I don't think it was him. It was somebody else, I think, who was writing about kids in sports locally. And he's like, "We're doing kind of an expose on the last 10 years of kids who made the all-county team, and we wanted to catch up with you." I'm like, "Okay." So he talks to me. There's about 25 kids every year that make it for offense, defense, and special teams. And he went back about 10 years. There's 250 kids. I was the only kid who didn't play in college. Some college.
No way.
Like, I didn't walk on. I didn't do anything. He goes, "You're the most remarkable person on this list. You're the only one who didn't play." I was like, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah." And then he said, "Why?" And I said, "I knew I wasn't good enough. And I was going to have to make the sacrifice of, do I want a subpar education or do I want to chase an old dream?" And I didn't want to chase the old dream. I wanted to go get a great education. So I went to the University of Florida and I started my life over. And I came to that realization, everyone, all 250 of those kids came to that realization at some point. Some of those kids were in the Hall of Fame for NFL football. Like, some of them were that good. But most of them came and made the decision I made later and slower. But I was fortunate. My mom planted that seed of doubt in my head when I was in the 7th grade. And by the time 12th grade was over, I knew it was over. And I made a better choice. And I went on a path that was better for me. And that's what's so cool about these things. You get to pick. But if you don't pick properly, you could end up in the ground like Tupac. You could pick the wrong career, or you stay there too long, or you don't get what you ultimately want out of your life. And that's one of the things that Ian and I want to talk about is we're pretty happy with where we're at. Is it perfect? No, but we're pretty happy with it because we made some choices that led us here.
Awesome. I love it. I think it's pretty clear to everyone who listened that I won, but I will say, I just want to say that I think you gave it your best for the genre that you were given. And I appreciate that you tried as hard as you did. I really do. Hey,
did I come in second?
You came in second.
No,
you finished in the top 2, which is pretty incredible. If you agree that I came in first, or if you think that Frank did, either way, please leave a 5-star rating out there and write a nice review. Maybe put it in the review. Tell us in the review, put us in your comments. Did you like country or did you like hip hop? Who won this one? My mom won't like it because I had to swear more because there's no swears in country lyrics. So I had to swear more today.
It's a rarity that I am.
Art. It was art.
No question. We're just quoting.
Hey, Frank, great hanging out with you today. Great effort.
Thanks, Ian. Good to see you.
See you, man.
Yeah, this album is dedicated to all the teachers that told me I never amount to nothing.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.